Hello everybody and welcome back to another EP video. Today we're going to be analyzing and ranking the 6 toss-ups of the 2020 election cycle. These are the states of Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and Arizona. Donald Trump carried each of these states in the 2016 election, along with the state of Michigan, winning the Electoral College with 306 electoral votes to Hillary Clinton's 222. Things are obviously looking a lot different heading into this November's election, with Joe Biden heavily favored to take back the state of Michigan, and as things stand right now, he is leading in virtually every swing state poll. However, in today's video, we're going to be ranking the 6 states that are sure to be the most competitive in 2020. Coming in at 6th is the state of Georgia. Georgia is the closest in terms of polling numbers, with Biden currently ahead by 1.7 points in 538's polling averages. As you'll see later, the other states that I have labeled as more competitive than Georgia all have Biden further ahead. That's because I maintain a firm belief that these early polls are favoring Biden by a lot more than he will ultimately win by. I expect polls to narrow in the months leading up to Election Day, and ultimately for Trump to outperform polls by say 1 to 3 points. Now, that does not mean by any stretch of the imagination that I think Biden won't win, and win comfortably at that, but it is worth being said. The Our Progress forecast, which I believe to be the most accurate and fair forecast for the 2020 election out there right now, has Biden with a 50.15% chance of winning the state of Georgia. Basically, it's an effective toss-up in their model. However, what really makes Georgia come in 6th, in my opinion, is the 2016 results there. The largest margin of victory among these states for Trump, he defeated Clinton by 5.1 points. Truly, it's very hard for me to see Biden making up a 211,000 vote deficit in just 4 years. And that is why I'm labeling Georgia as a tilt in favor of Donald Trump and the Republican Party, bringing him to 205 electoral votes, still 43 behind Biden's 248. Next, in 5th place, I have the state of Wisconsin. Having gone to Obama by 14 points in 2008 and by 7 points in 2012, Wisconsin flipped to the Republican Party for the first time since 1984 in 2016, with Trump winning by just 0.7 points and a margin of just 23,000 votes. I'll say that again, 23,000 votes. With Biden leading by around 10 points right now, nationally, it's hard for me to see a scenario in which he does not take back the state in November. He's up 8.1 points in 538's polling averages, with an A-plus pollster, Siena College, having him up by 11 points. The Our Progress forecast gives Biden a 64% chance of winning and a margin of 4.95 points over Trump. And as mentioned previously in the 2016 election results, Trump won by 0.7 points and 23,000 votes. Green Party candidate Jill Stein won exactly 1% and 31,000 votes, more than the margin needed for Clinton to have won. Wisconsin, while competitive, is far more likely to be in the Democratic column than the Republicans at this point, and thus it is a tilt blue state. Moving on to the 4th ranked state, we have Pennsylvania, another state in the upper Rust Belt that has typically voted for the Democratic Party over the past 3 decades, with the last Republican to win before Donald Trump being George H.W. Bush back in 1988. 2016 was the first time since 1948 that Pennsylvania voted to the right of the nation, with Trump defeating Clinton by a margin of just 0.7 points and a total of 44,000 votes. Pennsylvania is the 3rd state, along with Wisconsin and Michigan, to have been within the Jill Stein vote total. Looking at 2020, however, it is Biden's birth state, and he leads Trump by 7.6 points in 538's polling average. Our Progress also gives Biden a 65% chance of winning the state and an expected margin of victory of 5.01 points. An important factor in Pennsylvania is that registered Democrats greatly outnumber registered Republicans, with turnout playing a significant role in how the state votes in elections. That being said, Pennsylvania is nothing but a tilt blue in favor of Biden this November, which, by the way, brings Biden up to 278 electoral votes, enough to win the presidency. But we are now down to the 3 most competitive states of the election cycle: Arizona, North Carolina, and Florida. In 3rd, Arizona. Contrary to Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, Arizona is typically a more conservative and Republican state, moving dramatically to the left and in the Democrats' column. The greater Phoenix area is the fastest growing metropolitan area in the country, with reports saying that Maricopa County has registered over 200,000 new Democrats since 2016. Biden leads by 3.1 points over Trump in 538's polling average, and our progress gives Biden a 53% chance of winning the state in November. Looking at the 2016 results in Arizona, Trump's margin of victory was just 3.5 points, and a little over 90,000 votes in raw vote total. This was cut down from Mitt Romney's 9-point advantage in 2012, making it one of the few states where Trump did not outperform the 2012 Republican nominee. I do think it's very important not to underestimate how conservative Arizona is, and I really wish I could label all of these 3 final states as effective toss-ups. Another factor in Arizona's presidential race is the simultaneous Senate race between Republican incumbent Martha McSally and Democrat Mark Kelly. Kelly has consistently polled over 10 points ahead of McSally so far this election cycle, with her being one of the most unpopular senators in the country. Not to mention that back in 2018, Kyrsten Sinema defeated Martha McSally in the Arizona midterm Senate race by 2.4 points, flipping Maricopa County as well by almost 7 points into the Democratic column as compared to 2016. Again, I wish I could label it as a toss-up. However, for today's video, and the sake of the video itself, I'm going to give it to Biden by the slightest of margins. North Carolina and Florida are the only 2 states that remain, with both being, in my opinion, the most competitive states this November. In second place is North Carolina, where the Republicans have won in back-to-back election cycles following Obama's 2008 victory over John McCain. While typically a more conservative than liberal state, North Carolina has consistently been one of the closest states over the past decade of presidential elections. Biden is up 3.4 points in 538's polling average, higher than Arizona but far lower than Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. In a poll I referenced earlier by A+ pollster Siena College and the New York Times Upshot on June 25th, Biden had a 9-point advantage. Biden's also given just a 52% chance of winning in the key state, according to our progress. And finally, looking at the 2016 results, where Trump won by 3.6 points over Hillary Clinton. Polls heading into Election Day were dead even between the candidates though, leading me to believe that a 3.4 point polling advantage for Joe Biden right now is likely to narrow in the coming months, is probably not as promising as it may look for the Biden campaign. And that is why I'm actually going to label North Carolina as, surprisingly, yes, a tilt in favor of Donald Trump. Again, I wish I could leave it as a toss-up in gray, but when all is said and done, I do believe that North Carolina is likelier to go to Donald Trump than Joe Biden. However, North Carolina is going back and forth, probably the most back and forth race so far according to polls and forecasts in this election cycle. And finally, the state of Florida, the largest state of them all with the most electoral votes at stake, 29 to be exact. The last time Florida was decided by more than 6 points was back in 1988, when George H.W. Bush carried over 60% of the vote. With every election comes different dynamics around the importance of Florida for each campaign as well. In 2016, Hillary Clinton focused on Florida more than any other state, believing a victory there would secure her the victory no matter what happened in other key states for her campaign. This plan ultimately backfired, as she not only lost Florida, but the blue wall in the upper Rust Belt was relatively ignored by her campaign and ended up going to Trump by incredibly slim margins. Biden is unlikely to make the same mistakes again, especially given that he doesn't necessarily need to win Florida to hit the 270 mark. President Donald Trump, on the other hand, absolutely must carry its 29 electoral votes. If he loses here, he is virtually guaranteed to lose the election unless he miraculously loses yet holds on to the upper Midwest, which is an extremely unlikely scenario. Vice President Biden can focus most of his resources in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Arizona, as he leads in polls in all 4 of these states, but only needs to win in 3 of them. That being said, Biden does lead by 6.3 points in 538's weighted polling average in Florida, which is quite a remarkable advantage. If this holds, it could be worth it for the Biden campaign to spend more on advertisements across Florida, encouraging higher voter turnout to ensure a victory. Mail-in ballots will also come into play, with Florida voters being no stranger to mailing in ballots on election days years prior. Many counties across the state have already decided to send ballots to all registered voters, which is great news for Biden. The Our Progress forecast gives Biden a very slight edge over Trump in terms of chances of winning, and just a 0.85% vote margin advantage. Trump did win by 1.2 points in 2016 and by over 100,000 votes despite Clinton's efforts. But as things stand right now for 2020, I have no choice but to tilt Florida in the Democratic column, bringing Biden up to 318 electoral votes over Donald Trump's 220. And that does it for today's video. Everybody, I hope you all enjoyed. Please make sure to like the video if you did and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and tune in next time.